This is a story that starts at the other end of the land from Cornwall, up in Scotland. The laird, or the lord, the laird owned a vast farm, a vast manor at the edge of a loch. And every year the travelling workers would come to cut down his crops and store them away in the winter in the barn. This particular year, the workers worked so hard, and he wanted to reward them and said, "Whilst you've worked so hard, I'm going to open my great hall, and you may come in and have a ceilidh or a great party. But the thing about a ceilidh is that you have to provide the entertainment, and everybody does something." The lad said that he would provide the drink and he would provide the food. And in fact, he did. He laid out great tables. And the farm workers were really pleased about that and really grateful. And they were really quite excited too. So some of them would practice their fiddles. Some did little dances. Some decided on jokes they were going to tell or stories that they were going to do. Apart from one poor fellow called Joe. Joe stood at the edge of the barn and quaked because I don't know if you've ever just been asked to do something in public in front of everybody else. I've thought, but I can't do anything. I just, that's not me. What am I supposed to do? And that's what Joe felt like. And when it came to the time of the ceilidh, the great party, everybody else was having a wonderful time, and Joe was pressed against the wall by the door. Occasionally somebody would give him something to eat or a drink, but he was standing there, terrified, waiting and watching and hoping that nobody would notice that he was there. Then, about halfway through the evening, the laird, who was sitting on his great chair at a big table on a little platform, a dais at the end of the hall, pointed straight down. "You laddie, come here to me." Joe went, "Me?" He came up, walking slowly down towards the laird and standing before the dais, before the platform. The laird said, You have been drinking my drink. You have been eating my food. The deal is, you do something to entertain me. Now, what are you going to do?" But I can't do anything. I'm just a farm worker. I don't know anything. I can't dance. I can't play anything. "In that case, you must pay a forfeit," he said. "I'll do anything as long as I don't have to stand up in front of everybody." The laird tossed him an old tin cup. "There. What do you want me to do, sir?" "Take it down to the edge of the loch. There you'll find an old rowing boat. It's in the reeds somewhere. Bail it out, make it float, and when you've done that, you can come back and eat." I will, sir, I will." And with that, Joe wandered off down through the barn. "Now, my friends," said the laird, and he held up a huge silver cup. He said, "You see this silver cup? Solid silver this is. I'll give this to the best act of the night, or the best lie. You carry on entertaining me, and somebody will be a winner," he said. And he put it down in sight of everybody. And they were all very pleased. They tried much harder, and the party went on. Well, Joe got outside the door, and you could hear all the singing and the dancing and the playing going on. And he headed off down towards the edge of the loch, where indeed he did find the little rowing boat. And it was mostly full of water. So, actually being quite relieved to be out, he started to bail it out. And after some time, the boat did in fact start to float. And he was really pleased about that. And he thought, oh, well, I can test it out. And there were a couple of oars there, so he put them in the rowlocks and he rowed the boat a little way out into the loch. Now, it was such a beautiful night, and the moon was shining, and he could see the lights coming from the windows of the great hall. And he stood up in the boat to look. And as he stood up in the boat to look, you know what the bottom of that boat would be like? Green and slimy and slippery. And as he stood up to look, his feet slipped and he fell back, cracking his head on the wood at the back of the boat, knocking himself clean out. Well, when he came to sometime later, oh, my aching head. Oh, my, whoa. Whatever's happened? My hair's grown longer, he said. And, oh, that's funny, he said, feeling his chest. He looked down a little further and lifted his kilt and looked underneath. Oh, no! No! No, I turned into a woman. No, what am I going to do? It was daylight. He rowed the boat until he got to the shore, but it wasn't the same shore. He couldn't understand it. She climbed out of the boat and wandered up and down the shoreline. Oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? How am I going to say anything to any? As she was doing that, a woman came out of the little wood on the side of the loch with a basket collecting driftwood for the fire. "Lassie, what's the matter with you?" she said. I was in the boat and I knocked myself out, and when I came here, I can't remember anything," said Joe. "What's your name?" Josephine," said Joe. "Well, you come back with me, lassie, and I'll look after you. My son's in the house, and we could do with an extra pair of hands until you feel better." So Josephine went off with the woman and stayed in her house with the woman's son, and there expected any time to wake up from this nightmare, this bad dream, and to be back with the boat at the edge of the loch and then go back to the party in the great hall. But the hours turned into days, the days turned into weeks, the weeks turned into months. The months turned into several years. And with that, Josephine forgot the previous life and thought that must be the dream. That's where it was. And she married the son. And after a while, they had two beautiful baby boys, Hamish and Jamie. And they used to go out for walks. And one day, Josephine was taking her two little boys out down while she collected driftwood on the shoreline when Hamish found a boat sunken in the reeds. It still had a couple of old oars and an old tin cup. Mammy, can we bail it out? Can we see if this boat will float?" "Well, if it'll keep you amused while I collect wood." So the two lads bailed out the boat. "Mammy, we got it to float. Can we go in it? Can we go in it?" "Well, Just hold your horses, she said. I will try it out first. So Josephine climbed in the boat and pushed a little way from the shore, stood up and waved to her boys. They are boys, it looks good. Ah! But with that, her feet slipped and she fell over backwards, knocked herself out on the boat as it floated out into the loch. Well, how much time later had passed, for it was dark. And when she opened her eyes, the moon was shining brightly and there was the sound of music in the distance. Oh, my aching head! And my hair seemed shorter. And no. Checked under the kilt. No. Oh, my husband and my parents. My man and my parents, my little baby boys. And Joe, for it was Joe again, rowed back to the shore, raced up the shore, into the front door, into the great hall, and everybody stopped. My man and my parents, my husband and my parents, what am I going to do? What are you talking about, laddie? You've only been gone 2 minutes. My husband and my parents. He walked stutteringly up to the front of the dais and looked at the laird. Everybody was silent and looking at Joe. He'd never been like this before. I bailed out the boat and I went out and I knocked myself out. When I was awake, he explained the whole story. The lady on the shore, the sun, the children, her beautiful boys. And then what happened next? And the laird looked. He said, "That is the best story I've ever heard," he said. "The best lie, definitely. You shall win the cup for the best act of the night." And everybody started to clap and cheer. "Yeah, Joe, well done," he said. They stamped and they hollered and they played on their fiddles. And Joe just stood there. My husband and my parents, my man and my little boys. And to this day, if you're up that way and you see the travelling people huddled round a fire, you'll find an old man cradling a battered silver cup, well tarnished now, just muttering into it, "My husband and my parents." No. That's the end.